Well, thanks for joining us today. We'll get started with head coach Jeff Blashill. Please let us know in the chat if you'd like to ask a question. We'll start with Lean St. James.
Hi, Jeff. So what did you guys use? Was today mostly testing, or kind of what was today used on?
Well, I wasn't available yet, so my first day back will be tomorrow. But as a group, we had we had, I think, 10 skaters and a goalie. So today was used to get back on the ice, to be honest with you. We haven't, guys haven't skated since last Saturday, the guys that played. And so it was really just used to get back on the ice, get kind of our legs, start to the process of getting our legs back going. And that's not an easy thing when you've been off this long, even if for those that weren't sick. So it's a step today, and we'll take hopefully another step tomorrow.
So the plan for tomorrow is to have as more normal of a practice as you can, depending on, have you gotten all the test results back? I mean, I know Rasmussen and Fabry are out of protocol. Are you waiting? Are those the only two, or?
Those are the only two right now that are out of protocol. So, and as you know, we added more to the protocol tomorrow. So tomorrow I anticipate having seven forwards and 5D in one goalie available to skate tomorrow. So with a couple guys coming out. So, that what are we going to do tomorrow? We'll take a step closer, I guess, maybe to a real practice than we had today, but obviously you're limited with the numbers that you have. And, and certainly a number of guys still in the protocol. So we'll be able to do a tiny bit more from a team perspective tomorrow. But it's still going to be, about guys getting their legs and about feeling the puck and about getting those things back.
Do you know when your next game is? I mean,
I do not know that answer. Right now, as you know, the NHL canceled the games today and tomorrow. And so that took out our Ranger game. And my understanding is, we're tentatively planning from our perspective of playing on the 29th at the Islanders. But I don't know whether or not the games will happen or not happen. I think the NHL, as they've done a good job of through the course of this whole pandemic, I think they're taking information in and making decisions when they have to, and not necessarily before they have to. And obviously a number of guys around the league came back from the holiday break, in which case they all get tested today. And, I've just been watching the NHL Network this morning, and certainly a lot of guys across the league have tested positive. So I don't know if that means that there'll be a further delay in the restart of our schedule, or if we'll play on the 29th. I hope to find that out, in the near future, but I don't have that information today.
Lastly, just what was last Sunday like? I mean, that whole process of deciding to shut down, and you and half the team were in protocol by that time.
Yeah, it was, it was, I think probably the right move, I guess, given where everybody was at across the league. And I think just where we were at, we were going to have a hard time fielding a roster. And at that point, it's not really about competitive equity as much as about just honestly fielding a roster. We had a number of guys, in the protocol that and a number of guys continued to move in the protocol over those next couple of days. So, ultimately it was probably the right decision. We're in a difficult time within this pandemic, and I think ultimately what anybody wants is just to be able to field the requisite number of players and try to play. So we look forward to the NHL's decisions moving forward here. And again, I think for us personally, it's controlling what we can control, and that's the guys that we have available to us, trying to get them, back ready, up and running as quick as we can.
Thank you. You're going to be living in that shirt for the next several days, right?
Yeah, you certainly want to wish luck to Nate Lehman and his staff, and I'll be living in it with good confidence as we move through this tournament. Yes.
Thank you.
Next, go to Ted Colfin.
Hey, good to see you out of the protocol list. We're almost, I guess.
Yeah, almost.
Oh.
Tomorrow,
Well,
tomorrow I get set free.
What were your symptoms? I mean, how did you feel during this whole time?
I would say I had symptoms of a kind of a cold-like symptoms, I guess I'd say, headache, sinus, a cough. Those were probably my main symptoms that I had. I would say it was probably the worst, the most severe, I guess. And I don't know that it was that severe the first few days, but through it all, I was able to I was. It's just different times, and it feels consistent with what this newest variant seems to produce, which is different than maybe what some of the other variants were. I know guys that got sick, other coaches that got sick from it earlier, even this year, were really beat up, and it wasn't that case for me. So I feel good. Thank you.
Did you start feeling bad in Carolina, or when you guys got back, or what?
I would just say that I started to cough on the way home that night. I didn't feel bad during the day, and I took obviously a test before the game, and I started to cough on the way home. And that night I coughed and a lot through the night, and by the next morning, it didn't surprise me when I tested positive, I would say.
So, I mean, are you guys going to be ready for Wednesday if you do have to play? I mean, obviously, if you have to play, you have to play, but I mean, still sounds like it's going to be a little tricky for you guys.
Well, certainly there'll be challenges. There'll be challenges, but I know that the Islanders won't care. And they may still have some of their own challenges. I know they've faced some throughout the course of this year. So this is, if the league says that the right thing to do for the National Hockey League is to play the game, then we're going to go there and go to win the hockey game. I don't believe in letting anything be an excuse. So there'll be challenges for sure. There's challenges. There'll be guys that haven't skated much over the next couple of days that hopefully are able to get out of the protocol and be able to skate. But there'll be definite challenges.
The last one. Are you guys going to treat this as almost like a quasi training camp all over again?
I'd love to, Ted. But the problem is you can't do it to the degree which you'd like because of the numbers that we have available to us. Right. And so, if we had a full team today, the practice would have looked way different. If we had a full team tomorrow, the practice would look different. But you're restricted a little bit what you can do based on the numbers you have available. We had anticipated the Griffins playing tomorrow night. I don't know that that's going to happen now, but we wanted those guys to be able to play if they could, because they need players too. And so, we'll see what we do with call-ups and things like that, and as guys come out of protocol for practice.
Sounds good. Thanks for this.
Yep.
Next, go to Ansar Khan.
Yeah, Jeff. Sorry, I didn't hear that last question from Ted. But if you do play on Wednesday, do you anticipate most of the players coming out of protocol and being available, except for the two that went in today, or do you know?
No, not all of them. No, we won't have all of them. And I think part of it is, there's one thing to be available to play. There's another thing to be ready to play. So like, just because a guy's out that day, that means he wouldn't have potentially skated at all not skated at all for like 10 days. And where's everybody at from that aspect? So we'll make those decisions as we move forward. We certainly have plans in place for call-ups from the American Hockey League to play if needed and fill those roster spots. So we'll play with a roster if we do play that. We're going to go in there and win the hockey game, but we won't have everybody available to us beyond even the two guys that we placed in today. And Lucas Raymond, by the way, tested positive before Christmas, so his timeline will be different than Nick Leddy's. Just so you all know that.
And last year at the start of the season, I think you had maybe up to five players in protocol, which a lot less than you currently do, but. Do you take anything from that as far as what you learned, as far as just how long it takes I know even once they get back, it's not the same. It takes a while, but just how long it takes to really get back into game shape and get back into a rhythm once you do come back?
I would say, I learned a little bit last year going through that. And one of the things that I learned was to your point, each guy's a little different in terms of how quickly they're able to get their game up and running closer to what their normal is. And what affects that? Well, certainly, different how sick guys are. And some guys have very, very minimal to no symptoms. And some guys, it hasn't seemed to be this way this time around, but some guys have a little bit more symptoms. And, because of that, some guys have been able to do a little bit more on their own than others. And I just thought there was a couple times last year that I judged a player or two too harshly on their first game coming out of the COVID protocol, and that it was a little bit beyond reality for me to expect them to be at the level that I wanted them to be at, and they wanted to be at, and so it does take some guys some time, and we just have to be patient to the best of our ability and understand the guys are going to come back at different times, I guess come back to full speed at different times.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
Let's go to Trevor Thompson.
Good afternoon, Blash. Hope you guys had a great Christmas. And you kind of addressed my question a little bit, but I just wanted to get a more clear answer. As far as the Griffins, their game was postponed for tomorrow. So would you call people up to practice with you just to have them get with the guys before you move on, or does it have to wait until you leave town, or how would that work for you guys?
To be honest with you, Trevor, still kind of waiting to hear a little bit from the NHL, what the schedule is going to look like, and are we going to play for sure? And I think some of those things will factor into play. There's a roster management or cap management side to this that I don't necessarily deal with, but certainly there is consequences to it. So you can't just necessarily call up anybody. So we work with our management group on that. I have yet, Steve and I haven't touched base yet today on some things because I'm waiting to just kind of see where everything's going here. And that'll dictate a little bit on a number of my decisions. We were waiting on some testing this morning. There is opportunities for guys to test out. So we're waiting on some testing this morning. So it's just a very, very fluid situation, Trevor, that will we have some guys up for practice tomorrow? I don't anticipate that as of right now. I don't think we'd bring guys up just to practice per se, because now you're introducing new players into your locker room again. And probably the less players introduced, the better in terms of not, increasing the exposure. But certainly if those players we anticipate were playing on the 29th, and then we would potentially bring them in as quick as we can.
And just a question around testing, like even in your own situation, you talk about testing negative in the morning and by the end of the day, coughing and not feeling right. Just how much confidence is there when you go to test and then moving forward? How anxious are guys just knowing that it can change that quickly?
Well, we're confident in the system. The system, listen, there's obviously been I don't know if anybody knows the exact best way to handle what we're all going through, and that's trying to run a professional sports league and play games within this pandemic, and they're hard decisions that are being made here, and ultimately certainly confident. Listen, I had 2 tests that day. What more can you do? And in the end, I contracted the virus at some point and tested positive the next day. There's just not much more we can do that way. So, are people anxious? I'm sure the guys that haven't yet tested positive are anxious. I'm certain of that. This seems to be highly transmissible, and everybody in there's lots of people in all our lives who have, as I talk to different people that have tested positive here in the last little bit. So we're all anxious, and we'd all love it to not be the case, but this is the world which we're living in right now, and we got to find every way possible to make the most of it.
And just want to touch on one more thing. You rightfully so had your chest puffed out and boasting about your national pride is our annual wager on.
I was going to ask you the same thing, Trevor. I didn't know if you'd come back for more, but if you want to come back for more, I'd be glad to put our annual wager on, and anybody else out there that wants to.
Very confident in our roster. Good luck to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Last question, Kevin Allen.
Yeah, Jeff, if I could just ask you kind of a big picture question, even because this is the COVID situation, it's kind of odd. It almost has the feeling of kind of a mid-season break, kind of a cleansing breath. And I know your immediate concern is just trying to get a lineup for Wednesday, but did you allow yourself any time for big picture? And if so, we've talked about a lot of, the team's been improved this season, but there's been kind of ups and downs. If there was one area that you thought you could, if the team could be better in this area, you could continue to be competitive for a playoff spot. Like what's the area you're hoping that everybody sort of comes together quickly in the second half?
Well, it's probably an area, Kevin, that I've talked, and I think we are improving, but D-zone grade A chances against have to improve. We're one of the worst teams in the league in giving up grade A's per 60 minutes in D-zone coverage. And that's an area that I think is fixable. It's an area that it doesn't mean we're going to improve to first by the end of the year, because it's hard to move up the rankings. But from this break moving forward, we have to continue to get better in that area. And I think certainly you'd love to score more and give up less. We all would love to do both those things, but when you can limit other teams' opportunities, especially those grade A's and D-zone coverage, you put yourself in tons of games and put yourself in position to win. And so that's certainly one area. I had good conversations with both our assistants over the course of the break about specialty teams, and that's obviously another big area. We didn't win enough of the specialty teams battle, through these first 31 games, and yet our record's probably better than it could be, than it maybe should have been, given the fact we didn't win enough of those special teams battles. So we feel that if we can improve in that grade A D-zone chances against, and we can improve in our specialty teams as we move forward, it'll make us a lot better hockey team.
Thanks for your time, Jeff. Happy holiday.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
All right, that's all for us this afternoon. Thanks everyone for joining us.